Good afternoon, everybody. Mike with Woods, Water, and Wisdom here on this beautiful Monday, November 11th, Veterans Day. And as such, I wanted to talk a little bit about our veterans and some of the things the Lord has kind of showed me about that. One of the neatest things He showed me recently when I was just kind of thinking about David. You know, David was a great warrior, probably considered one of the greatest warriors in the Bible. But the interesting thing is, David was also a great worshiper. He was a great worshiper of God. In fact, God said he's a man after my own heart. And those are two different positions. I mean, they seem like they're almost juxtaposed, but they're really not. David was a man who was very open with his emotions and his feelings, which is odd because most people don't consider warriors to be that. We consider warriors to be very stoic and very serious people, which they can be, and they are. But, you know, for the most part, a warrior doesn't have to be. And David was not. David was a man that was very open about his emotions. In fact, he wrote most of the Psalms. And if you read through the Psalms, there's some pretty emotional stuff in there. I mean, he had his highs and his lows, and he had his moments where he was at rock bottom, and he had his moments where he was on the mountaintop, and we get to see most of that within the Psalms. David went through some stuff. He was betrayed. He killed a lot of people because they betrayed him or they did him wrong. And so it's very interesting when we look at David, how his life was, how much of a great warrior he was, and yet he was also a man who was a man after God's own heart and worshiped God greatly. And so I wanted to read out of Psalms 144, this passage here, which is, I think, a wonderful passage for our warriors, for our service members, our veterans. It says, Psalms 144, verses 1 and 2, "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war, and my fingers for battle. My loving kindness and my fortress," talking about the Lord here, "my loving kindness and my fortress, my high tower and my deliverer, my shield and the one in whom I take refuge, who subdues my people under me." So it's David writing here, and he says, you know, the Lord is my rock, and he trains my hands for war. He trains my fingers for battle. And he is also the loving kindness, my loving kindness here, that refers to covenant love there. And so David speaks of the Lord, his God, who trained him for battle. You know, when we see David, the first time we see David, like, really comes onto the scene prominently as a leader in Israel, he faces Goliath. And he's just a youth. It says here, you know, the scholars think somewhere between 15 and 17 years old when he first comes out to battle Goliath, a 10-foot giant. And everybody knows the story of David and Goliath. It's the story of the underdog. But the interesting thing is David knew who he was in covenant with. He knew who his God was. He knew who backed him up and who was on his side. And he stood in faith based on the covenant, and he took that giant's head off its shoulders that day and crushed the Philistine army. And so David was a warrior. When he was in Ziklag and the enemy came in and they stole their wife and their kids and burned the city, you know, we see him one moment, he's crying out. His heart is broken. He's lost everything. And then he said, you know, Lord, do I pursue them? And the Lord said to him, pursue, overtake, and recover all. We see the same thing with Abraham and Lot. When Lot was taken by the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the king of Sodom had taken, he had gotten taken captive, and all of the people, the city had gotten raided, and the people were taken captive. And Abraham put together his servants and some other friends. They were kind of a ragtag army, and they went and fought these kings and whipped them all and took back Lot and all of the people of Sodom, and plus all the riches and treasure. At a couple other places we see the Bible talk about warriors or soldiers. Some very interesting ones here. The warriors are referenced quite a bit throughout the scriptures. One being David and his mighty men. The feats of his mighty men are listed there, and they're talked about. Joshua and Caleb, the only two spies that didn't believe or bring an evil report, and they went into the land, the promised land, and they whooped people. It's said about Caleb that he took the mountain. That he told the Lord, give me my mountain, the one you promised me 40 years ago. And he was about 80 years old when he went and whipped the giants and ran them out of his mountain. The centurion that came to Jesus. A centurion was a soldier, meaning he had 100 soldiers underneath him. And he came to Jesus and he said, my servant's sick. And Jesus said, I'll come with you. And he said, no, you don't have to. Just speak the word and my servant will be healed. Because I'm a man under authority, having other people underneath me. So he understood authority, and Jesus marveled and said, I haven't found faith this great in all of Israel. Another one is Cornelius in Acts chapter 10, verses 1 and 2. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion, who was called the Italian regiment, a devout man, one who feared God with all his household, and gave alms generously to the people and prayed to God always. And so, there's another reference to another soldier who understood authority, who loved God, prayed, gave alms. These are qualities. These are all admirable qualities. And one of the greatest things about serving in the military is it teaches you how to develop these qualities, how to understand authority, how to be under authority and then also exhibit and practice authority, how to be self-disciplined, how to war. So for you to serve in our military, thank you. Thank you very much. It's very admirable to be a warrior. I know some people have an issue with it, but you shouldn't. God talks about warriors a lot, and he makes a lot of references to warfare and the discipline and the abilities required to be really good at warfare. And so we thank you for your service. We salute you this Veterans Day. And you don't have to sit here and think because I'm a warrior, somehow I'm lesser in God's sight. In fact, no, it's the opposite. Even Jesus himself is called the Lord of Sabaoth, or the Lord of Angels' armies. He's going to come back as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and as the warring, the head of the angel armies. And so you as a soldier, it's very admirable that you serve as you have this country, and we thank you for it. We salute you this Veterans Day, and we appreciate everything that you've done for us. If you've ever served in the military services, the military at all. And so we salute you. I'm not going to keep going on. I'm rambling on at this point, but I want to thank you very much for your service, and we appreciate it. And if you like this, hit the likes button, smash the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one. God bless.